Hi there, this is Hussein. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'd like to show you the feature that came out with Unreal Engine 5.4, which is the motion design feature. This particular project will be probably suitable for people who are doing motion design or motion graphics for marketing purposes. In this case, it is more like a product reveal kind of a motion graphics. We're going to go through the process of bringing objects from Twinmotion. We're going to enhance the background using the cloner and effector feature. We're going to add some text, and then we'll take this whole thing into Davinci Resolve for further color enhancement. I hope you will learn something out of this, and let's get started. All right, let's start by launching Unreal Engine 5.4.1. Once we have the Unreal Project browser, select the film, video, and live events. And I'm going to select on blank project. In this case, I'm going to enable ray tracing. I'll put it in my D drive, and I'm going to call this product reveal. And then click on create. Okay, once we are in Unreal Engine, we need to enable a couple of plugins. The main one will be the motion design plugin. So I'm going to click on settings here, plugins, and looks for motion design and enable motion design. It's going to give you a warning, just say yes. The next thing we're going to look for is the plugin called Datasmith. This is going to be the plugin we're going to use to transfer assets from Twinmotion into Unreal Engine. So Datasmith importer, click on that. We'll probably need this as well. FBX importer, Datasmith importer. Do a restart. All right, we're back in Unreal Engine 5.4. Now what we need to do is we need to jump into Twinmotion, and we'll need to bring some assets over. Let's open up Twinmotion. To run Twinmotion, you need the launcher to be open again. So you should have a tab up here called Twinmotion, and I've got Twinmotion 2024.1 preview enabled. There are a list of Twinmotion softwares here. So choose the Twinmotion 2024.1 preview over here and click on launch. So once Twinmotion has opened up, I need you to click on template on the top left corner of the screen. And in the templates, you will see this basic lighting template. So you might need to download yours because I've already done it previously. So I just need to click on open. Give it a few seconds. This is the assets that we're going to bring into Unreal Engine to do the product reveal. On the top right, you can see that we have the right shoe, the left shoe. We have this S-curve object that we can also take into Unreal Engine. So what we're going to do now is we are going to go to the file menu up here and say export to Datasmith file, and I'm going to choose standard. Click on that, and it's going to ask you which Unreal Engine project you want to take this into. I'm going to click on Unreal Engine project. I'm going to see to product reveal and select the content folder. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it sneakers. Click on save. So we have successfully exported the Datasmith file. It took me about 2 minutes. Once we're done, we can actually close Twinmotion. I'll see you back in Unreal Engine 5.4. Once we're back in Unreal Engine 5.4, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go up to the file new level, choose the basic level, click on create. I'm going to go to content, do a right click, and I'm going to say new folder, call this sneakers. So file, save current level as. In the sneakers folder, I'm going to say product reveal, click on save. Next, we're going to bring in the Twinmotion assets. So click on content, go to the plus sign over here, click on Datasmith, click on file import, and you should have sneakers.udatasmith in your browser over here. Click on sneakers.udatasmith, click on open. It's going to ask you for which folder you want to put it in. I'll just leave it at content level here. Press OK. You have an options of bringing some assets. We're just going to stick to the geometry and materials options. We don't need lights, we don't need cameras, we don't need animation. Click on import. Okay, once that's done, you should be able to see something in your viewport. These objects, the assets, we have 2 sneakers background that we will probably need to remove one of them. So I'm going to quickly save all just in case. Click on save selected. So we have sneakers, which has some asset that comes with it. So we've got the left shoe, the right shoe, the S-curve. So let's quickly look at the outliner here and remove some of the stuff that we won't be needing for our project. In the lighting folder, we have the lights. We're going to keep that for now, but we don't need the floor. I'm going to delete the floor out. And now you see that you have a couple of more assets here, which we don't need. Go down the list here. So cameras, I'm not sure where the camera came in, so I'm going to delete the camera out. It'll give you a warning. I say yes. And I'm going to keep this white S-curve objects here, but remove the rest. So I'm going to click on the static mesh. I'm going to click on delete. In fact, I can just select all of them and just press delete. Apply all, yes. So we have the shoes in there, the sneakers, and we have this nice background. It is very important for you to note that the shoes, in this case the sneakers or the shoes, and the S-curve, the background, are always in the 0, 0 position. So looking at the reference image that I made, the first thing that we're going to do now is we're going to actually pose the shoes like that. We're going to bring in the quixel break asset and then set up the camera. So what we're going to do next is we are going to actually go into the motion design layout. So I'm going to click on motion design up here. And then we have some panels that pop up. I'm going to just rearrange the panels as I like it. I'm going to remove all the lighting. If you look at the reference, it's going to be like a studio lighting here. We won't be needing everything except for maybe the exponential height fog. So I'm going to click on directional light. I'm going to delete that. Sky atmosphere, skylight, volumetric cloud, SM sky sphere goes away. Your scene will now become totally dark, but don't worry. Let's jump to the unlit view so we can now start creating our camera. Click on this menu icon. I'm going to say create camera here. Scene camera actor. Rename that to cam 1. I don't like this thing to be here. It just interferes my view. So I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go say editor preferences, type in camera. Then I'll scroll down until I see something called preview selected cameras. I'm going to disable that. I'm going to take my camera. I'm going to drag it straight into the sequencer so I can start framing my scene here. And again, when you have this playhead that goes out of bounds, click on this little gear icon and say keep playhead in the playback range. So I'm going to select my camera. I'm going to start moving around. This will change as we move along. So I'm going to just drop transform keyframe here. So it is locked into position. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the quixel bridge object down here. Plus sign, I'm going to say quixel bridge. Make sure I'm logged in. So I'm going to go and look for my 3D assets. Click on home and in the search window, look for something called sandstone rocky ground. And then you should be able to see this asset, this one over here. Select that and then make sure we have a nanite quality because we're going to go very close to it with the camera. So click on nanite and click on download. Once that's done, you click on the plus sign over here. And now the object should be appearing in our content browser. Drag this object into our scene. Keep tweaking the scene so it looks like the reference over here. One thing that you note that the sneakers are all broken up into different parts. So it's important that you select the shoes here and bring them as one piece. So I'm going to just rotate the shoe around, just look like this. Don't worry too much about the side at the back or the background stuff. We're going to play with that in a bit, but just I'm going to get the position of the shoes so it looks like our reference. Press Ctrl G to make that as a group. Call this the R underscore shoe. And now it should move as one. Now let's work on the left shoe. Select the left shoe, press Ctrl G to make a group, L shoe, and then I can start rotating that. So I'm going to resize the rocky sandstone here. Go down to the scale here, click on this lock icon. I'm going to say give me 0.5. Then we can bring it up and then we can rotate around until we find a position that looks nice. I need to see some of the foreground over here and then some of the background. So we can actually rotate the object upwards like that if you want to. And if you have this clipping of the camera over here, that's a very good CVAR that you can use. So at the bottom of the screen, you can type in near clipping and you should see something called R set near clipping plane. Put it at 0.1. And now you shouldn't be able to see any clipping with the camera anymore. Now I'm going to go back to my sequencer and make sure I click on the transform for my camera. So now we have a nice position for the camera. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the lights. Right, so we have our shoes in roughly the position that we want. I'm going to change something here because we're not actually looking from our camera, although our camera is selected over here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the camera and I'm going to say cinematic viewport and I'm going to select the camera again and now we can see it from looking from the camera lens. If you are in the camera cuts mode, you will not be able to move your camera. If you want to move your camera, you need to go to the Cam 1 mode. All right, so now you can move the camera around freely. If you want to, you can reposition it. So what we're going to do next, we're going to bring in the lights. At the moment, if I go back to the lit view, you can see everything is dark. If you look at my reference, there are a couple of lights in the scene. There's a light coming from the top right corner. This fuchsia or the pink color. And then we have this blue light that is coming from the left, hitting the front side of the shoe here and also the sandstone down here. So I'm going to go back to my unlit view, click on this shoe over here. Maybe we can select the right shoe null object here. Right click on the location, say copy the location for the shoe. And then I'm going to bring in my spotlight. Click on the plus sign, go to lights, bring in spotlight. Sometimes the spotlight is not at a position that we want them to be. Sometimes they are elsewhere. So I'm going to do a right click here, I would say paste. So I can paste the spotlight exactly where the shoe is. So now we have a spotlight. Press the G key to bring up the spotlight. You can see the spotlight from here. I'm going to start rotating the spotlight. So actually it's facing from the upper left corner of the scene. Switch back to the lit view. so we can see our light. So we can actually start rotating our light. This is very straightforward. Just make sure the position of our light is on the shoe, and then in my case, I can probably change to the color that I want. So make sure the lights are all immovable because we are using lumen. So I'm going to click on the light color, and let's just go and grab this fuchsia color over here. We will tweak this a bit more later on. So I'm going to just make sure I go to the move mode, and holding the control key and your left mouse button, you can actually move the light around. And then if you use the control and right mouse button, you can actually move your light that way. So I'm going to hold down control and use both mouse buttons to bring it up, and then use my left key to bring it around. So you can actually look at the position of the light by using this keyboard shortcuts. I know the camera is a bit out of focus, but we can actually play with that in a bit. You can do the same thing with the rotation. Click on rotation here. I can use my left mouse button. Then with the control key down, I can actually rotate the light however I want it. So it's easy to see in this way. If you look at my camera, we have 11.8 focal length. Okay, let's make it closer. And then let's make the focus distance a bit sharper, or focus on the shoes. There we go, right? Now it's in focus. We're trying to achieve a out of focus in the foreground. Focus is on the shoe, and then the defocus or out of focus for the back shoe and even the background. This will do for now. For the other spotlight, I'm going to just duplicate this spotlight over here. So let's find out where it is in our outliner here. So that's the spotlight. I want to just give it a name. I like to rename my actors SL left, which is the left of the screen. I'm going to duplicate that now. Control D, rename that to Spotlight R. Okay, so I'm going to take that guy now using the same keyboard shortcuts that I used earlier. Control and left. Just going to move it to this side of the screen. Change the rotation of it until I find something which I like. Change it to the blue in the reference. So just put it that way, just for now. And for information, you can actually save these colors over here. You can just drag it into this color swatch over here. So you can use it over and over again, which is kind of a nice feature. Let's say we like that. Let's look at our reference. So we have this. Okay, so the blue is on the left and the red is on the right. So I got it mixed up. So no worries. So this is where this tool comes in handy. So if I have my spotlight left selected, I'm going to change it to blue. And if I have my spotlight right selected, I'm going to change it to fuchsia. It's much easier to do this. Let's double check again whether we are doing the right thing. The right is red, the left is blue. That's perfect. And then click on OK. Now we can tweak the intensity of the lights. Maybe my blue light, if I click on my left screen light, I can actually change its intensity. Let's try 9 for now. For the spotlight red, let's keep it at, let's try 9 as well. You can also control the reach of the light, which means the extent of how far the light shines, which is using the attenuation radius. So in this case, if I bring it down, you can see the light is not reaching as far. Maybe that's good enough, right? Just hitting the edge of this sole here. Spotlight right, I can bring it down as well. Let's keep it at 200. All right, so we got our setup there with our lights. Press the G key. And I probably need to tweak my shoes a bit more. So remember the last position of the shoe, you must be able to see the shoe itself because we're trying to sell a product over here. Okay, I think that's good enough for now. All right, so the next bit, we're going to tackle the background. So I'll see you shortly. First and foremost, let's always save our project. File, save all. So now let's talk about the background. So I'm going to just jump out from the camera for a second and then look around at what's happening in the scene at the back. We have this bridge asset over here. And then we have like a background here, the cyc, which we're going to put some texture on it. If you look at the reference, you can see that some stuff that's going on the back there is actually using a texture. So with that, I'm going to talk about the material designer that comes with motion design. Let's now work on the background. So select the background, click on material designer. There'll be a pop-up, dock it over here. Since we have our object selected, which is the curve, I'm going to just say create material. Okay, so now you can see that we have the material for the background and it has this standard checkerboard. I'm going to just create a simple material, which is going to be a noise pattern. So with the material stage selected, let's look at what we have over here. So we have a texture, a default texture, which is the one that we can see right now. You can have a bit of offset if you want to. You can actually animate this. You can actually rotate that, right? You can actually rotate maybe 45 degrees. You can scale it up and down. And then we have mirror on X, mirror on Y. You can just flip them around. What we're going to do next, we're going to actually put a noise texture on this. So click on this browse icon over here. And I'm going to look for something called noise. So you click on the engine folder and you type in noise. You scroll down a bit, you can see this noise T01. So I'm going to click and drag onto here. Okay, now we have a nice noise pattern on the back there. I want it to move from screen right to screen left. So we can actually bring in an FX, and then we're going to choose UV, and we're going to see UV panel. And with that, you can see the textures moving now, right? So we're going to slow it down. It's a bit too fast. I'm going to click on UV. It's actually U multipliers at 1.0. I like the way that the direction is going from screen right to screen left. That's fine. But I'm going to slow it down a bit. You can actually scroll the textures, see what's happening. So that's a V offset. And then we have a U offset. So it's just a subtle, not to distract us from the foreground. So what I've done is I've put in U offset at 0.1, U multiplier at 0.5, V offset at 0.2, and V multiplier at 0.2. If you look at the reference image, you can see that it actually looks a bit like it's a smoke at the back there. If you look at the actual video, you can see that it's actually, if I click on space, you can see actually it's moving slightly. Not so obvious, but it's there. Jump back to sequencer, click on, you can press Shift-C to lock onto the camera. Looks good. So I'll leave it up to you to tweak your background how you like it. And I'm going to just take a few minutes to just do mine, and I'll see you shortly. All right, so I've played with some of my settings over here. So the next thing we can do is actually we can create an alpha channel, so it looks as if you can see through the fog at the back there. Select the material here and click on the FX button, and then use alpha level. And now if you open up the alpha level, you can see that you can actually tweak the input minimum and input maximum. You can actually adjust the opacity of the noise at the back there. And it's a very subtle move. So if you look at my UV panel, I've got those numbers over there. Maybe we can just try and round them up. 0.14, just 1. Cool. So that's the material designer that we can actually set up for the background. And that's all we need for the background for now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start putting in the motion design elements. Okay, looking back at the finished video, you notice that some shimmering stuff in the background. Those are basically some cubes that I put together in the cloner and effector that comes with motion design. All right, from the motion design tab over here, I'm going to go ahead and grab the actor, and I'm going to pick up cloner actor, double click on it. We have a cloner. You can hardly see it, but it's there right at the back. Click on cloner. I'm going to go to the details panel and make sure we just reset its position, 0 and 0. And it's quite huge right in the middle here. We're not interested in how big this cloner is. We're just going to bring in some objects. So click on plus sign. I'm going to go to the shapes, and I'm bringing in the cube. We have a cube there, and we're going to make the cube as the child of the cloner. So I'm going to click and drag into it. Select the cube, and then I'm going to change the size of the cube to 0.5, and I'm going to delete the default cube. Now we have a cube in our viewport here. They're pretty small. Let's go to the cloner, and I'm going to do some settings here. Select the cloner, and then scroll down until you see something called the layout. I'm going to change the layout to cylinder. Now they're in a cylinder form. I'm going to change the base count to 200, height count to 40, height to 500, and the radius to 200. Scroll down a bit more. So enable range, and then we go down to the scale uniform. We enable that. Scale minimum, we'll put it to 0.5, and then scale max to 1.0. That will give us this effect of the cube, some of them being small and some of them being the same size. Click on the content level here, click on add, go to add feature or content pack. Going to click on content, enable starter content, add to project. This one will give us some materials that we can use. I'm going to close that. I want to jump to the materials. I'm looking for this metal gold material. So with my cube selected, drag and drop the material onto it. And if your material does not change, if you notice here, let me change the light so you can see better. We can now see the cubes in the background. I have dragged the material onto the cube, but for some reason it's not working. So what we can do is we can actually now go to the mobility, either change to static and back to movable. You should see them now having this material on it. Let's look through the camera and see what happens. So now we have those objects at the back there. So keep on tweaking the light and say something that you like. So the shadows are a bit too sharp for my taste. I'm going to go back to the lights. So a spotlight right, I'm going to change its source radius. In my case, I'll put 10 and 10. So that will soften the shadows a bit. It's not going to be too sharp. I'm going to click on this one here. I'm going to do the same thing, 10 and 10. Okay, this softens the shadows a bit. Control Shift S to save. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to make the cubes at the back there move around. So we have the cloner cloning our cubes, all the cubes in our scene. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add an effector so we can make these cubes all move about. So select the cloner, scroll down a bit, click on Spawn Linked Effector. So the effector is now going to be linked to the cloner. Click on the effector, and I'm going to do some changes over here. Let's change the effector type to make sure it's sphere, and easing is linear. Inner radius, we'll leave it at 100, and then the outer radius, we're going to put it at 800. Scroll down a bit more. We're going to change the mode from default to noise field, and then change the location strength Z to 50, and we're going to change the frequency here to 0.5. Now we're going to enable orientation force enable here. You can see now the cubes are spinning. As you go closer and have a look, they are spinning on their own. You can actually tweak the orientation force rate if you want to make them move faster. I'm going to put that maybe 5. You can see them shimmering a lot more, and I'm just going to stick to 1 for now, or maybe 2 to make them move up and down like what's happening at the back there. You can go to the pan properties and then change Z to 0.5. We have enabled the force. We have orientation force rate of 2. If I make it to 1, it's going to go a bit faster. If I put 10, it's much faster, right? We're going to slow it down. You come to 0.1. That's good enough. I like this because we can see some red and some of the blue reflection on the cube. The cube's also spinning at the same time. The next one we're going to do is we're going to start working with the camera, and we'll make the camera spin around, and then we'll put the text. Okay, so I've made some changes to my scene. I've added some lights. In this case, I've added a light to shine a bit the bottom of the shoe here. Added a point light there. And then I've added another light, which is the rec light, which is shining the cubes at the back. And with that, I've also changed the lights for the rec light. So you can actually tweak around the lights, whatever lights that you want. So let's work on the camera animation first, and then we will proceed with the text. So to animate the camera is already in our scene over here. So I'm going to do is I'm going to create a null object, which is going to spin the camera around. I'm going to make a 3-second comp or 3-second sequence. So let's change the frames per second to 30 frames per second. And I'm going to change this to show time as seconds. Here we have almost 2 seconds. So I'm going to just zoom out a bit. So let's make it into a 3-second comp. I'm going to just put a 3 second there. I'm going to drag it out. Drag this out to 3 seconds. Create a null object. Rename this to cam spinner. After making the cam spinner, what we need to do is we need to reset its position so it's actually at 0, 0, 0. So I'm going to say reset to default. And then I'm going to make the camera the child of the cam spinner. And I'm going to take the cam spinner and put it into the sequencer. We're going to click on the plus sign. We're going to click on transform. Then drop a keyframe at the end. This is going to be our last position of the camera. Take the playhead to the beginning of the comp. And I'm going to use my transform key. I'm going to go to rotation, and it's going to be on the yaw. So I'm going to just rotate that around. Drop a keyframe there. So I'm going to copy this keyframe, and I'm going to drop it here. Right. So now we can see that we have quick camera movement there. So I'm going to go to the last keyframe over here. I'm going to just change the yaw a bit so it just moves a bit more to the right. So if you see that now, you can see it's actually moving. If you want to change the timing of the whip, we can actually drag the keyframe if we want to. There's a keyboard shortcut with the control and left and right mouse if you want to change the timing, right? You can bring it closer so it becomes much faster. Control Shift S and save that. So that's one thing done. And let's move on to the next bit where we're going to start putting the text in. Before we start bringing in the text, I just want to let you know that I will leave it up to you to be how creative you want with this, because there's a lot of things that you can change. To bring in the text, what we're going to do is we're going to use the motion design panel over here. So we got details, we got motion design. And I'm going to look for something called actors, and I'm going to go and grab the text actor. So just double click on the text actor, and then you should now have the text actor at the back there. We'll just jump out from the camera for a second. We'll show you where the text actor is, right at the back there. So I'm going to copy the position of this shoe over here. Right click, copy position. And then I'm going to click on the text actor, right click, paste position. So now the text right in front of us, but it's huge. Looking at our reference here, we can see that we got sneakers sport. So I'm going to just use that same thing. Sneakers, and then press the shift and enter key, and then type in sport. And I'm going to enforce uppercase. For the font, so I'm going to use the font that's in my system called the 62DRAGZ. For the text size, we can use the scale over here. So I'm going to bring it down. So now we can jump into the camera and look through the camera and see what happens. Okay, something like that. Okay, and I'm going to just rotate that around so it faces the camera. Position-wise, I'm just going to use these positions over here. If you look at the reference, we have something called the new arrivals. I'm going to put that in as well. Duplicate this text. I'm just going to rename that for now. I'm going to call this H1, heading 1 text, and I'm going to make one more, Control D. I'm going to just bring it up, and I'm going to change this to H2. It's done it for me. Let's change the font to something simple. I'm going to probably use something called Babas Noya, and I'm going to change the text to new arrival. Bring that down, position, looks nice. Let's change a bit of the color of the text. So I'm going to go and look for coloring style. I'm going to change from solid to gradient. And I'm going to introduce the two colors that we had earlier. Choose the blue from the top. And then at the bottom is going to be the fuchsia color. Okay, so our H1 has that nice gradient going on. If you go further down, you can see you can have translucency. You can change the gradient mask. You can have it disappear. Unlit or lit. Unlit means it's not going to be affected by the lights. We are done with the text. So in the next one, we're going to put some atmospherics in the scene, maybe a bit of the fog. Okay, so in this part, we are going to enhance the look of the scene. Remember our previous sections, we actually left the fog in the scene. So I'm going to go and grab the fog, which is in the lights section. I've got my exponential height fog. I'm going to enable the eye for that. Enable the volumetric fog and then change the fog density to maybe something like 5. So we have this nice volumetric fog in the back there. So we go down here to the albedo. You can actually change the fog color if you want to. Okay, that's the exponential height fog. I'm going to delete the other one, which I don't need. And the next thing I'm going to do is going to go and grab the post-process volume. So plus sign, go to visual effects, post-process volume, quickly rename that to PPV. Click here INF to make it sure that it's infinite extent. Let's clear that out. And the first thing I'm going to play with is the exposure. Turn up the exposure, make my EV100 to 1, EV100 max to 1. Go up here to the exposure compensation. I'm going to put it to 2. That's it for the PPV. We'll come back and we'll do some rendering and then we'll send it out to Davinci Resolve. I believe our scene is ready for render. So I'm going to click on this clapperboard icon here. Then we have the movie render queue open. If you do not have a movie render queue enabled, you need to go to settings, go to plugin, and then just type in movie and make sure that the movie render queue is enabled here. Okay, you might have to restart. So I'm going to click on the clapperboard, click on the unsafe config here. I'm going to stick to JPEG, set the output to final render, select the folder, just enable a couple of more things. I'm going to click on settings, I'm going to go to anti-aliasing, and then I'm going to set the spatial sample count to 5 and then temporal sample count to 5. Click on override anti-aliasing. Let's set game overrides. So we have JPEG sequence, deferred rendering, anti-aliasing set to 5 and 5 with override anti-aliasing enabled. We have game overrides and then we have output which sends to my folder. Okay, we'll keep it as HD. I'm going to click on unsaved and I'm going to save my preset. I'm going to use my sneakers folder here. I'm going to just call this JPG underscore game override underscore anti-aliasing, which I set to 5 and 5. And I'm going to click save and accept. And I'm going to send this out for render. Okay, the rendering is done and I'll see you in Davinci Resolve. Alright, here we are in Davinci Resolve. I'm using Davinci Resolve Studio 19. This is the studio version of Davinci Resolve, but you can use the free version if you wish to. Or if you're familiar with After Effects or Premiere Pro, you can use that as well. So I'm going to click on my untitled project. I'm going to double click on it. So I'm going to do a right click. I'm going to say import media. And I'm going to select the first image. Press Ctrl A and press open. Click and drag into the timeline. Okay, zoom in to see your sequence. We're going to select the timeline. I want to jump to the color page over here. Press Alt S. Right click and say note label CC for color correction. So we have some color wheels down here we can play with, or you can use these curves down here. I'll leave it up to you to enhance or color correct your project. Alright, I believe our color correction has been done. Go down to the deliver page, click H.264 master, click on browse, product review final. Click on save. I'm going to change QuickTime to MP4 to H.265. Encoder is going to be NVIDIA. I'm going to change the frame rates to 30. I'm going to go down to set to constant bitrate. Click on add to render queue. And I'm going to click on render all. So render is completed. I hope you learned something from this tutorial. And of course, you can be as creative as you want. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it in the comments section below. And I'll hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.